Let's go ahead and start this off today. I am joined by Chris Hill, gaming connoisseur, founder of Games You Love, and man of many hats. Chris, you want to introduce yourself officially?
Yeah, I've my Numskull hat on today, which I work with a great team over there on the PR social marketing side, and I actually got into working for Numskull because I have been playing video games my entire life. I'm creeping towards the big 50, I have to say, and I also started a little thing coming up to about 9 years ago called Games You Loved, and that was to reach out to people who love this hobby. I suppose you could call it a hobby or obsession. And as a result of doing that, I ventured into the games industry much later in life. I was doing hotels and retail and all sorts of things before that, and then finally done what I should have done years ago, and I'm now working for a games, movies and TV merch business. So here I am, really.
Well, congratulations. I'm sure lifetime of games and gaming is kind of something that's interesting to put on a resume, but it does probably help qualify you and give you a certain level of expertise and know-how and insight into your day-to-day activities, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think I can safely say that I'm not necessarily good at games. I like talking about them more than anything, and it's brought me some of the best friends I've ever made, because we could talk about this, for days, let alone hours. There's so many facets to it, and that's really why I love the hobby. I do love playing games, but I would regard myself, apart from a few select titles, I wouldn't venture into any competition. I'm wearing Tekken is probably my game. I've got a Tekken.
Nice.
Because it requires, a bit of energy. You can pass through. I've been in one competition where I did get through a few rounds just on pure button bashing and joystick haggling. So that seems to be the one for me. And then Paperboy is another game I just seem to be quite good at. Maybe because I had 3 paper rounds, thanks to the experience I had as a lad. To the arcade. It was a bit of a busman's holiday, I think, Paperboy for me, because I did it to earn some pocket money, and then it was one of the first machines that I went to. But don't get any ideas about quarter arcades, because I'm not sure you could hold it at handlebars, really.
That'd be a little bit tricky to kind of correlate to that quarter scale. But today we're talking about quarter arcades, and you kind of mentioned earlier and touched on it, is just the communal aspect of gaming and talking about video games with friends. That's one thing that arcades specifically were really good at, was bringing people together, being that one place that everyone could go, enjoy the thing they love, play video games, chat, socialize. And you guys have done a really good job thus far. You've got several releases out of the gate already. What's been the history of quarter arcades, so to speak? Who was the brainchild of this operation? Like, where did it even come out of?
I wish I could say it was me. Claim all the glory. But the business was set up originally by a couple of chaps called Matt Precious and Ben Grant. And Carl Mizzen, who came in a bit later. He's our creative director. I think from the arcade's point of view, it was a bit of a collab between Matt and Carl. So this was before I joined, and I believe, so 2021 now, I believe it could be creeping up to 5 years ago, that I was going to sort of say so, the first bit of wood got pressed against another bit of wood. The actual physical state of the first prototypes, but I think there was talk before that, to be honest. It's a bit like with me of Games You Loved. I wrote down the idea in, weirdly, 2002, but it took me 10 years to actually register a website and Facebook and get on with it. So I think it's, if you're going right back to if you're doing the origin story, probably, when they were 8 years old, it was, I wish I could own an arcade.
Yeah, it's that childhood dream of, you go to an arcade, you play on one, you have that experience, and you go, I want to do this at my house. I want an entire room full of arcades. That was almost every boy and girl's childhood dreams that ever stepped foot in an arcade back in the day.
Exactly that. And we were talking about this earlier, how can you recreate that nostalgia? But obviously, you're in a 2 meter square room, or,
Mm-hmm.
You've got a small game room, or maybe it's in your kitchen or front living space,
Mm-hmm.
or you don't even have that. You have to perhaps find a little corner of your work desk. And, it's the money challenge, it's a space challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So how could that be, emulated, I suppose, but in a physical way? Because there's so many different ways you can play these games, on a phone. There's small little versions, and obviously you've got the bigger experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
And all the releases, Pac-Man has probably had the most format releases and conversions from computers. When I was playing, Atari 2600 through to the Commodore Spectrum, you name it, it's been ported. But this was more of, how can we create a physical kind of experience? So I think what occurred was, let's see what shape and size is the best fit.
Mm-hmm.
They started to, first of all, this might lead to some of the other questions you're going to ask me, but almost just making it as a non-working version.
Just as a piece of decor.
Yeah, a solid piece, or parts to see what it actually physically felt like, looked like, and that's where they started. Almost like an empty shell, and they started to look at the types of machines that they'd want to do with that. So it was very much a concept development piece for at least about a year, to be honest. So that was the kind of origination and the concept, and it was really Matt and Carl that drove that idea, and it was, like I say, just an idea. Mm-hmm. It wasn't to arcades at that point, so it was how they kind of took that to the next level, and a name often does, once you've got a good name, whether it be for a song, or a brand product, or a car, once you've got that name, you've got that hook, mm-hmm. then it really starts to kind of
take shape and snowball. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, because you then, if the name has some resonance and you've got some rationale behind it, that also does help. The name doesn't necessarily need to be descriptive, mm-hmm. but if it's got the personality, shall we say, then you can start to extend it into what becomes obviously the brand afterwards, really.
Mm-hmm. And you actually kind of hit on multiple prongs here too, because the quarter arcade, it has a double-edged sword meaning. You've got the quarter scale, representing the size of the actual physical units themselves, but the standard practice of most arcades, especially here in the States, was if you wanted to play a game, you pulled out a quarter from your pocket and you put it in. So it hits on both levels.
Yeah, we wouldn't have worked with the 10 pence arcade, because it wouldn't. Yeah. And also I think maybe it's a compliment you guys here. So I think from a British point of view, especially in the 80s, American things were, when your friend came back from, going to Orlando or LA, they brought mm-hmm. back trainers. They told you about the films that we would have to wait for about 2 years. Yeah. It really was a lag, and the arcades as well. I mean, I think there were situations where you did see things before us, and it was that glamour that we sort of saw. But alongside that, the fact of the size and the unit of currency, like you say, has that double meaning. Mm-hmm. It just felt the right thing to do. But being quite honest with you, because Matt has spoken to me about this, is that we didn't actually, from day one go, right, we're doing a quarter scale.
Yeah.
That's it. We had a size that was around that space, but then, after, discussions and brainstorming, I think Carl and Matt went, well, actually, if we kind of make it a bit fatter, wider, taller, mm-hmm. And I think one of the key factors is exactly as we can get it without, using laser engineering to get it, within an absolute. But we are pretty confident about it's extremely there because we've had people look at it as well as ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Get it scaled. So when you put it alongside the real deal, it's just,
it makes sense. Yeah.
It's like it's Big Daddy, Little Son, isn't it? Sort of thing.
Yeah. It doesn't look like a case where somebody got a piece of taffy and stretched it across. It doesn't look, super unproportional where it's too wide or too tall. It definitely looks to scale as it's advertised.
Yeah, because I say as much as the comparative, not everybody's going to have a dig dug and have a dig dug next to it, but people have taken them to events, have kind of done that thing of comparing them. It does look really cool when you see those photos. We've been to events and even done that ourselves. But I think it's when I don't know if we're going to cover this, but it's like when I joined, it was just a Pac-Man machine, and it's like I love that machine, and you just wanted more, So we always used to line up all the lots of Pac-Mans.
Yeah,
but it was because
well, one arcade is great by itself, but the moment you put it on a shelf or in a room by itself, you're like, oh, that looks great, but something's missing. Well, clearly the obvious is more arcades, because every arcade you go to, they have lines and rows and stacks of arcades. It's not just, hey, welcome to the arcade, we have one singular game, feel free to line up. They're meant to be accompanied by their mates and their friends and their other surrounding games.
Yeah. And it's not a marketing ploy either. I can tell you. It's just like you say. It's a natural thing that you see. It's like the way you line games up. A lot of people, the nostalgia of owning. Say, I collect various, but I like Japanese Mega Drive games. And I always remember there was a place in London, Tottenham Court Road. You go in and they'd have them all lined up. And there's no way, but back then I could afford more than, I maybe had 5 games in my collection. They're really expensive. They're like dollars wise, $90 for one game. Back in 1990, a lot of money.
After inflation, that's like $225 today.
But now, some of these games you can actually pick up cheaper than that in relative terms. But it's the point of seeing them lined up on the shelf just brings back that nostalgic quality. It's like a time machine of gaming nostalgia, really. Seeing them all together, really. So having the quarter scale, we couldn't have one that was in scale and one that wasn't as well, because let's start with the quarter scale and then let's forget about it later. It had to be from day one.
It's got to be cohesive, otherwise you're going to set off and trigger everybody's OCD. Plus, it's just going to look like inconsistent. Which every arcade cabinet does have its own unique shape, and you guys have been definitely very honest and truthful to that form. But you don't want a Pac-Man that's 3.5 inches taller than a Dig Dug, something that wouldn't make sense. You want things to be cohesive across the line.
Yeah, and we worked really hard. We could have taken some shortcuts in Amco cabs, that they have got a similar, shape to them, especially between Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man. But even there, the angle of the curve on the side panel, we made sure that it was in line with the machines that we produced. And our guys up in our sort of design team, they luckily they own all the original cabs in their
Great
space.
reference points.
Great reference point. Even though we work very closely with the licensor, having schematics as well as having the cab itself just gives you that judgment of the spatial side of things that you might not see on a drawing. You see on the original, as well as visual references, because there is some variation between some of the cabinets. So we do as much as we can to make sure we kind of mimic and replicate what was there in the first place, really.
Now, you mentioned when you first came onto the team, Pac-Man was the sole cabinet, but since then the line has grown significantly. So you've got Miss Pac-Man, you got Galaga, you got Galaxian, you got Dig Dug, Bubble Bobble's the newest one. You've had a 40th anniversary Pac-Man, and there's also been some other cabinets that you guys are still working on that have been announced. You've got a Kickstarter program for a urban legend cabinet, so to speak. You want to talk about any of these?
Yeah, so like you say, we kicked off with the obviously the Bandai Namco cabs. Thought that especially Pac-Man was a really good entry point because it's such a world famous machine, and I think it was definitely the right route to go.
Yeah.
Because people locked into that. Not only just a very popular game, addictive game, but a cultural icon as well. Across the world, it's a global piece, and everybody kind of jumped on board with that. And then we, like you say, we developed the Miss Pac-Man, Galaxy, and Gallagher. The art on those is probably as key as the game, really.
Absolutely agree.
There's some great art. Galaxy is a real favourite of mine from an age perspective, and the sounds of that game.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you say, we did Dig Dug. That's a real. I think you're starting to get into some real gameplay with that particularly. And Bobble Bobble obviously is our most recent, which you probably see up here. And the other cabs that are coming up. So we've got Space Invaders,
Mm-hmm.
which is something we're working on at the moment. One of the things we're trying to produce and mimic is the use of the mirror in terms of the display effort. So going through kind of various prototypes to kind of test that out and materials and what have you. So when we get to a point, we'd want to do an update on that. We tend to kind of do our updates on the fan group, just to mention the course. If you just go to Facebook and look for Quarter Arcades fan group, I don't know, you can put a link to that.
I'll put a link in there for sure.
We'd like to let those dedicated people know first. Give them the heads up even before we go to social media, because they've followed us.
They've been through the the weeds, through thick and thin. They're your most passionate, your most dedicated group of supporters for sure.
Exactly, and I talk to them daily, so try and answer as many questions. I'm not, unfortunately, Numskull company. I'm not the tech guy. I'm not the production.
You're not the king of Numskull, no.
I'd like to know everything, but I do my best to both answer the questions and also feedback to the relevant team. Luckily, I do know pretty much everybody in the company now. I've been here nearly 3 years, so it's useful. I play that kind of conduit, I suppose, between fans and the company. But also Ben's in there as well. He's our owner. Shows kind of he's not just hiding.
He's not sitting in a ivory tower somewhere with his leg up on a mahogany desk or anything like that. He's actually looking to communicate and chat with the fans. I've seen him commenting all the time in the Facebook groups myself.
He does, and Deborah as well, who's in there. So yeah, we try our best to keep everybody up to date, and we're excited. When we see developments, we want to share it with people, but also equally it's easy to just do all the rah-rah bit. If there are any issues, we want to resolve them and communicate with people, even if you can't give an answer straight away. Just try and acknowledge somebody made the effort to go in there and highlight something to us. And often it can be quite useful for us to to see those things, because you've got people who are complete aficionados and technical wizards, quite honestly, when it comes to seeing things. So it's good to get that instant push, if you like. And I want to try and show, I suppose you might want to call it behind the curtain stuff, where as we're developing, not just in the final delivery, I want to try and encourage this more and more, especially in the fan group. We do it on social as well. So yeah, Space Invaders. Once we've got that mirror thing going, I'd love to show a video somehow without how it comes across.
That'll be an interesting thing to try to record for sure. But it kind of speaks to the detail of these quarter arcades, because Space Invaders is such a unique cabinet with the way it used that mirror technology, or lack of technology, shall we say. You guys probably could have, easily cut through, made a very short end of this, eliminated the mirror, just thrown a screen in there, kind of angled it differently, and called it a day. You guys are pioneers of trying to make sure this is as accurate as possible, even if it's going to put out the retail readiness of the cabinet, whether it be for logistic reasons or technical reasons, because you guys are truly trying to stay as accurate and authentic to what Space Invaders was and originally presented itself as.
Yeah, and what you're saying there is true. We want to hit the timelines, but every cab is different. If we were just cookie cutting each one in the same mold, same same shape, and not varying the aspects which make the cab authentic, we would speed through it. But I don't think that's what people want. Certainly from the feedback I've seen, they want as close to the original that creates a nostalgic buzz for them. Otherwise, they might as well just go and make it themselves, kind of thing. And also, I think the fact that it's official, we've worked with alongside the partner, they've seen it through the various stages as well, I think is a good. You've seen that there's a story behind the way we've developed, say, Bobble Bobble, because there was not a off-the-shelf cab. We worked with Taito in terms of the kick plate, the side art, and the bezel, obviously the marquee and the board, and that was all kind of tied up. But and sorry, bezel was as well. But that was a really rewarding process, because you've got a unique item, but it's also us working alongside Taito. So you've kind of got something that you wouldn't see before as well. But it has got a heritage kind of link as well. So we're very proud and pleased to have pursued that one, and I think everybody would like that to continue, really. It just means that you can, as a project manager, I've been project managing things for 25 years, from large scale live events through to production pieces, and you can put timelines on activities, but sometimes you want to go further with things, or you don't want to shortcut, and therefore things do take that much longer, and then you get variables come in. Certainly I think all of us have experienced variables with supplies of materials and also with deliveries. It's a global phenomenon. So we're kind of doing our best to streamline that, but also balance costs and everything else, really. So it's a daily challenge, should we say.
It really becomes a juggling act, like you said, because there's so many different facets that are involved with this, whether it be working directly with the licensors, whether it be cost of components and goods, worldwide pandemic happening all of a sudden. There's so many things that could delay and prolong your standard ETA turnaround time frame, your goals, your quarterly deliveries, things like that. All that goes out the windows when one of those is impacted. When you have multiple parts of that, impacted, at that point it's just you roll with the punches and you do the best you can. And I think you guys have been pretty open and honest, especially in the Facebook fan pages. Anytime you guys have experienced a setback or a speed bump, whether it be beyond your control, or it's just you guys are really wanting to take some extra time to tweak something, you guys have been pretty open and honest about that.
I think it's also a bit cause, I'm a fan. I collect various things, and sometimes it's good to have a little kind of reminder, but equally we don't want to just go in with news that has no substance to it as well. So it might appear perhaps we're a little quiet. Track and field's a good example. It's making those decisions when you don't want to make a decision, for example, because we had obviously the plan. We've done various prototypes. I shouldn't really say this because people will go, "Oh my God, please get it out." But ultimately, that's a multi-license, sort of development. We needed the game as well as the art And as people on the fan page know, the art, we had some challenges really. So we had to make that a quite difficult decision to take it offline for the time being. And then we went, because again we listen and ask that question, would people be happy with some evolved art, which we would work closely with the IP owner, but people want the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
That was quite true from commentary and the kind of voting that went on. So yeah, we're kind of on hold with that, because I think just going back to one of the things you sort of mentioned earlier was the authenticity has to be the experience, and I think once we do it once, we kind of then venture into, oh well, you know what, we'll just kind of take a shortcut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you set that level of expectation. If you've continuously across the line strived for authenticity out of the gates, to come out of left field with something that is not on par or in line with that is typically going to be jarring for a consumer, unless they have some sort of say or upfront knowledge of why changes were made.
Exactly. I mean, shortcuts, and not so much. There may be situations where we might want to do something that doesn't affect the overall, but we alter it. But I think something as significant as the original artwork, we saw that there was a real demand for, look, we want it as is, really. So it's just a good learning point for us. But it also just reaffirmed where we came from with the beginning of all of this, that we're still, I think, in the same mindset as our audience, really. So it was kind of a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. We didn't want to obviously give the deposits got refunded and what have you on that one. And a lot of people were like, don't take, keep my deposit.
Yeah, I'll wait forever. It's fine. Yeah. Just make it happen. Yeah.
But then if you've got an indefinite, you have to kind of almost say, look, please just, and then we'll come back to you when things change, sort of thing. So, we just wouldn't feel correct to hold on to people's deposit money even. So that's kind of why we did that. Polybius, we are still heading for July, despite the various developments and challenges that we've got. As I say, if any of the dates change, we try and get on the page straight away and give people a heads up. But yeah, we're still heading for that. And what I'm hoping to is probably around kind of be quoted on this late April, early May, to have the kind of production prototype. So very, very pretty much close to that, and quite excited, a box as well, the production box, and talking to Mark, who's our video chap, to do a video unboxing and showing that off with photos as well. So again, very conscious of, I think Matt did a update in the comments that we will be doing an update, but I don't want to just do, and Matt doesn't want to do an update for update's sake. Hi guys, how's it going? Are you all well? I mean, we want people to be well. But we're sorry, we haven't got much to show apart from saying hello. Hopefully people know that we're still here. It's Numskull, and obviously, I'm still functioning as is Matt. But we're head down trying to get things done. But equally, when we do an update, we want to try and have a bit of substance to it, and probably some content as well that we kind of come forward with. But that's kind of where we're at. So looking at touch wood, within a month we can show some more stuff on the Polybius, which I'm pretty excited about, because it is a bit of a unique, it's a different type of take on the quarter arcades, because it didn't, well, did it exist? It didn't officially exist, and also the functionality being centered along the USB charging aspect, with the this ambient video that we've kind of developed as well.
True.
excited about.
It's definitely something I'm looking forward to getting, because like you touched on, just the functionality of it. So like having an entire row of them is nice, but then you run into the logistical issue of how do I plug them in, how do I keep them all charged, and how do I keep them all going, because I want them all turned on for that ambiance. So you get a little bit of arcade lore plus some arcade functionality to charge your machine. So it's a two-pronged approach that fills the need.
Exactly. I think we said it on the page, but just, if people haven't heard it here for the first time. So our main concern there is just making sure that Kickstarter people get their cabs, but also doing the caps and the pins, which I've got samples of that are really good, and they'll be coming through. So once we sort everybody out with the Kickstarter, because they've given us the loyalty and the backing, it's the first Numskull Kickstarter as well, so I want to make sure that things go to plan. Personally, I know alongside Matt and Ben, once we've got those, and it is a very limited amount. I have to say this is going to be a nice collector's piece. There will be a handful, and I mean a very small amount, it will be going up. So once, I don't really want to kind of go into that. It sounds a bit strange. I want to really make sure the community Kickstarter, they get their bit. But I know a lot of people have been messaging me, even directly.
A few that probably missed out or were late to the party on the Kickstarter. Mm-hmm.
So, but I think what I'm going to do is drop it in the fan page once that pre-order is ready. But it's probably going to be, around July, if I'm honest. So let's get those delivered and make sure everybody's happy with it and content. Then we can maybe start to look at what overs we've got, but very much about just making sure we get that piece right. It is Polybius after all, so let's see how it gets.
You don't want any notorious side effects happening for that cabinet in particularly, especially for the consumer's sake. You touched on it a little bit earlier as far as how Quarter Arcades started with the iconic Pac-Man. I don't think anybody would disagree that that's probably the most recognizable name when it comes to arcades. But I was curious, how has the titles so far been chosen? What's that process look like? How do you guys pick, what games to go after and what games to translate down to the quarter scale?
I'd like to really give you the, we take a scientific approach. It's all Google Trends and SEO research, but it really at the beginning was what probably Matt and Carl wanted to make for themselves.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's the perks of, being a brainchild of a company and a brand. You can say, well, this is what I want, and then we'll follow suit with what everybody else wants later.
Yeah, there was no community, there was no Facebook page. We couldn't really kind of do it anyway. Had to come from the minds of the creators, but also there was that objective view as well. It wasn't purely I mean, my cab I love is Circus Charlie. It's just the youth thing. I had it in my youth club. I would have gone and made that first, because just being selfish.
Personal connection.
Yeah, exactly. But I think Pac-Man worked for both the emotive, but also commercially, yes, it's a big game, so it will be a good one to kind of have both things. And then obviously the line of subsequent cabs as well. I think one of the things that's evolved is we're out there asking people their views on cabs. I think I've done a couple of polls, and I've said it in the poll as well. This is not like, all right, just because it's number one, we're going to go and make that. And also people putting in their suggestions. Again, it's one we will look into those as well. So I did one recently. I think ended up with about 40 suggestions. So we'll put that into the pot and see how we can develop. Part of it is obviously getting the licenses as well. So there are some that we have a number of existing relationships, because we make merchandise with many other partners across apparel and key rings and all the other merch that we make. We've got that tie-in with those previous partnerships, as well as, we will look also to new opportunities as well. I'm being a bit evasive there, but yeah, I think the gist is that no stone will be unturned. If we think it's a good idea, we will pursue it, and that's the Numskull way. Certainly since I've known the business, if we feel it's a brand, a pop culture reference, TV show, game that people are a fan of, as a fandom and as a love of that piece, we will see, right, can we work with that company, and we'll do our kind of design piece on it, because that's really what Numskull is about. We're designers at heart and creators. That's where Matt and Carl came into this from, very much about quality of design that they would try and bring, not just the actual machine, but the box. I think people like the box designs that we've developed, which I think you've got the signed 40th, have you?
I do, yes, and it's fantastic.
So that box, let's make it a little different for that.
Which was a nice touch, because it adds to that special collector's editionness. You definitely feel like you've got something unique that's not, just a carbon copy, cookie cutter, restickered. It's truly its own, individual cabinet. It's got its own presentation. It's got its own design elements to it. So it definitely makes it feel much more, I guess you could say premium.
Yeah. So 200. I can't even think of saying it, like 256. That's it.
It's an extremely limited quantity, but it's also a significant number in Pac-Man's history. So it's a perfect tie-in.
So we wanted to do that box different. Obviously, Polybius. We've got this very mysterious box. I love boxes. I've got a CRT here, a 36 CRT. Behind it is just boxes. I've got I don't know, in the US you're familiar with this thing.
Oh yeah, there we go.
So there's a ZX81 box down here. In fact, my whole room is just held up by boxes. It was that thing of going into a Toys R Us or something and seeing all the boxes lined up, and I think having some people have the arcade box and the machine next to it, so it's a display piece, as well as it's a good thing to store the machine in as well. So we pay quite a lot of attention to that side of things. So yeah, and we obviously had the coin with the original Pac-Man as well, which we felt was a good a one-off thing, really.
Yeah, a nice little collector's keepsake for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
So historically, all the quarter arcade machines thus far have been your basic traditional joystick and button setup. Are there any plans to maybe expand on that and grow into other arcade realms? Because there's, as well as I do, there's all sorts of arcade games. There's driving games, there's shooting games, there's unique joystick configurations, there's analog joysticks, there's, flight joysticks, there's steering wheel configurations that are unique to each and every game. Have you guys noodled around the idea of maybe releasing different style of arcade cabinets?
I think it's funny, actually. It's a question I asked on the fan group. Kind of sums it up, really. I think owning a quarter arcade is part of many things where you might sort of want to own one. Definitely, it's a nostalgic kind of view back in time. Once you've got your machine or the machines that you like, it's turning it on, it's the sound, it's the look and the lights, especially if you low light it, get that great marquee feeling. And you kind of going back in time when it was a simpler period in your life, and then you go to kind of play it, and I think that go to play it is also a key factor. Never to rule out the possibilities, but we would have to work with the sizable limitations of some of the accessories. I am an accessories nut. I love light guns, flight sticks, steering wheels. I've got boxes and boxes of them for consoles. You're talking to somebody who really wants to do something like this because, especially at home, you get that arcade experience. It's almost like the one thing that, why would you go to an arcade? Because you're playing Afterburner with the flight stick, Space Harrier, obviously, Paperboy I mentioned earlier with the handlebars. It's just how do we kind of get the connection of authenticity
and do it justice
without it feeling like some made up thing. But then, there's our challenge, I suppose. So I'm not really giving you an answer. I'm more giving you a yes, it would be good to do it, and definitely we would never rule it out.
But obviously it presents its own unique hurdles and challenges because, it's one thing for you guys to produce a hypothetical racing game, but to actually make it practical to where it's not something that just makes you smash your head against the wall from frustration because it's so impractically unplayable. Yeah, sure, it looks great, but if you paid a little extra money and you're expecting it to be an enjoyable, playable experience that you remembered from your childhood or whatever, and it delivers the complete opposite, then it's not going to do anybody any service to release that kind of product.
If you're talking about driving games, it's not even that.
That's where it started right there.
That wheel is almost too big because that's not quarter scale that in terms of the size of the cab. So here we go, going right back in time. You'd have to do something like this.
Yes.
Demon Driver, which is 1978, I think. But yeah, the wheel would literally have to be, half the size of my finger.
Yeah, which for some people it might be doable, but for the majority of others, not realistic, probably.
But then, maybe I'm going too far with this now. I'm getting excited myself, but we managed it then. So, never to rule out the possibilities. And I think probably what we'd have to do is we'd have to mock it up and do a proto internally, a basic one, to see what people felt like when they were playing it. It's as simple as that, that Demon Driver is a bit weird. You're kind of doing this, but it is sort of playable. But I actually think the wheel could be smaller than that, even, to be honest, in comparison. Flight Stick's an interesting one. Again, it just, would you just feel a bit strange doing it? So it's almost like suck it and see. You'd have to kind of model it first and see whether it actually,
because you don't want to feel like you're diffusing a tiny bomb or anything like that when you're playing the game. You want to feel like you're playing a beloved game from whatever part of your life. But yeah, like you said, it's just one of those things that mock it up, throw it around the office, see everyone's knee-jerk reaction, and see if it's feasible.
I think that was the thing. I mean, when very early days actually of me joining, when I took that Pac-Man to is actually London, a London show, a London Play Expo, quite a big event. Amount of people who gave me that, oh wow, you can, it actually feels, even though it's small and tiny and there's a little, piece of the joy with the ball, you can actually get some friction on it. It's never going to be like the original. We all know that because it's just a different thing. But that's the thing, is that the player factor, the player feedback will be the thing that determines that evolvement, if you like. So that's kind of where we're at. So we obviously have a series of lineups that we need to deliver, but we would never rule out the possibilities.
So
safe to say.
Good. So we talked about the collectability and the fact that it's almost a demand need, so to speak, to have more than one of these machines. But even to go a step further, there's all sorts of things that were in arcades back in the day that kind of like tie in with arcades that really give it that look and feel and that ambience, whether it be carpet, lights, stools, the change machines in the arcade, the little mini bar stools, or not bar stool, bar tops that two people can gather around, things like that. Have you guys thought about maybe expanding the line and adding peripherals to the quarter arcade lineup that would pair nicely with these cabinets, so people could make like little tiny arcade dioramas and things of that nature?
This is definitely on our wish list. We've been talking about this for some time, and we finally went out and asked people a couple of weeks ago in the fan page. I think it was just like people have been talking about and making their own things anyway. It's about time we showed the love, I suppose. So yeah, absolutely. It's something we would like to start working on and get people's feedback on, because we know what we would like to do to create our little mini room, if you like. We've got our own arcade, so up in our design we've got our own. You might have seen it in some of the B-roll of some of the videos we've done, where we've got the little fire extinguishers, and I think we even made the mini tubs. So I don't know what scale they are from real scale, but they're little tiny tubs. And with the posters, the flyer art, the stalls,
you got the brick background, the neon sign, the lighting, everything. I mean, it looks like a true arcade. Absolutely. Because and I think that's what people are probably looking at, maybe recreating or reproducing on their own own terms at their own house.
Exactly. And not everybody has the sort of electronic skills. I wouldn't, to be able to make some of these things. I mean, at the moment, those are all 3D printed. We've got a pretty high-end 3D print set up in our design studio. But yeah, I mean, looking at the feedback, very popular things were USB hubs, some functionality in the style of jukeboxes, soda machines seem quite popular. So we could do it with a various number of brands. Would be quite cool. I love flyers. I love arcade flyers. So could you do some little mini arcade flyers that you could put on your diorama wall? Could do look at that. Change machines, which I know quite popular. Carpeting seems to be like the thing.
Just something about most arcades back in the day people remember more than anything is the iconic silly UV light reflective crazy shapes, space, stars, things like that they would walk on. It just seems like a natural tie-in with the arcade experience.
I think that's quite hard to get retro carpet now, like 80s carpet.
I can't imagine there's a whole lot of companies that provide wood flooring and carpeting, things like that set aside places in their showrooms for that kind of thing, unfortunately.
So yeah, we might serve a service there. Bar stools seem popular, and then we had some less popular but interesting ideas. So mini CRT TV, sometimes you'd have MTV up in the corner, or Top of the Pops if you're in the UK, and playing music videos, that sort of thing. Interesting one. Neon lights, the signs, definitely popular. Brick walls. So kind of anything that showed that authentic, aspect. I mean, in arcades, you've even got the grabber machines, haven't you? You've got even back then, you've got the ones that give you a little toy, little capsules. I love.
Little prize eggs.
Shenmue capsule toy would be a little thing. I don't think it was mentioned actually. I might have to put that up later. Could we create a little one of those? I'm going alongside one of our brand partners. Could be quite exciting to do. So yeah, it's the gloves are off and the ideas are definitely open. So it's kind of how do we take it? Next, is it Kickstarter? Is it a community thing, or do we look to release it? All things that we're discussing. And as I say, once we have a sort of a complete plan, because we don't want to tease people too much. There is that sort of thing of asking people and then kind of not promising and not delivering. We don't want to do that. So when we
don't want to give people false hope, for sure.
Exactly, yeah. But we are sort of asking people for a reason, really, to get their views on it. So that'll be an ongoing thing, and hoping to drop something on that at some point. I was going to say this year, but we'll see how things evolve. So yeah, that's kind of the change machine is definitely an interesting one. Functionality is an interesting one. Obviously there's the charging point, but other functionality we're kind of open to as well. Lighting is definitely a fun factor, I think, in a machine, or music is another sort of interest, or enabling music.
Having some sort of kind of Bluetooth tie-in or things like that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just, we don't want to just make something for the sake of it and then people don't use it as well. So it's just finding out what people kind of would like to have in their arcade, and how far. Some people just want a little touch of maybe a carpet, and
others a full-on 6-foot roll so they can create a massive massive scene.
Exactly. Where's my mock-up waste paper bin that you used to get in the arcade? Where's the little change guy in the change thing
behind the window?
Yeah, exactly. Did you used to have in the US like the guy in the change or lady in the change thing?
Yeah, and the bigger arcades that were super populated, absolutely. Other smaller ones, it was just relegated to a soul change machine in the corner or something like that. But yeah, the angry, disgruntled arcade change worker is definitely an experience that cannot be duplicated, but it was an integral part of the authentic arcade experience for sure.
We need to trademark that as an action figure, what you just said.
100%. I'd buy it in a heartbeat, because the amount of times that on a Saturday of all days, I'd go and try to get a $5 bill change for quarters, and I'd have some disgruntled person say, "Shouldn't you be in school?" I'm like, "It's Saturday." And
you can pull can you pull its cord or press the button and
absolutely just get all these common phrases. Absolutely. So you mentioned it earlier, there's multiple facets of an arcade. There's change machines, little claw machines, arcades, pinball machines. Obviously it's hard to narrow down specifically, will you be able to do all these type of things, but you've basically alluded to, if the fans want to see it, they just need to be vocal about it, communicate it in places like the Facebook fan page, as well as social media places like that. Is that something you guys are going to potentially look forward to, is maybe just more crowdsourcing type of opportunities to get these things off the ground, more Kickstarter projects in the future?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting process, the Polybius, as much as seeing the support for something that we were very passionate about, because it was very ingrained into I guess the people who are seriously into arcades, kind of loved the story of what we were doing with the whole Polybius project, and to get that support, as much as the constant feedback, definitely as much as in the page as in the Kickstarter. I think definitely was a big crossover there. A lot of people within the fan page back the Kickstarter, but equally in the Kickstarter itself, the suggestions were just unreal, and especially on the video that we're developing, because it was a completely new kind of concept and idea. And but also, as we were going, this is what happens when you do Kickstarters, because I've been involved in a fair few with games you loved. A little sentence can trigger, well, actually, why don't we include everybody's name in the video? And it as much as it was just an off the cuff thing, when people realized they could do that then just added into the overall package sort of thing. So you get that with crowdfundings that you perhaps won't get so much within a commercial release, if you like. However, it's a bit of a balance, because we do have the fan page now. Sorry to keep talking about it, but it really does have value for us in that interaction piece. So I think that we will still, I think there's two things. One is that we'll still very much continue to release products through Numskull, and obviously our retail partners that can be Just Geek, Game in the UK, EB, GameStop, blah blah, keep going through that system. That definitely it's a great way of distributing across the world, but equally there's that piece of maybe there's Kickstarters and then go after to retail. I think it's just being a backer of, back maybe 50 projects myself, just making sure that we stay true to the fan who's, pulled out their wallet and, made that commitment, both from, making sure they get a good deal, but also making sure that they're a priority, that, I can't name names, but I think you probably know when you get, I've had a few instances where I've seen the retail version delivered
before a Kickstarter. Yep. Nothing more frustrating as a person that, like you said, has opened their wallet
by saying that. But that's one thing that accidents do happen in distribution. That things do, one hand doesn't speak to the other. So maybe you'll be pulling this up for me one day. Hopefully not on Polybius, because I'm very adamant that does states there. Things do leave the distribution. It happens, but that something that just want to try and prevent against. So it's just always that if it's a crowdfunding project, trying to kind of keep that real with the people who've got behind it. But like I say, that our focus is on the machines. Focus is on quarter arcades, the arcade machines. Not to say we would never do a pinball cab, for example, or a bagatelle, or going right back, or a electro mechanic cab. They've got those down. I played a lot of those down at the Musée Mécanique in San Francisco. It was amazing. Imagine doing like an 1890s.
That would be really cool to see.
Something, that would have to be a Kickstarter. I can't see.
For sure, yeah. Retail buyers in a buyer's meeting would probably just be scratching their head trying to have you explain what that is to begin with. So that would be a like you said, something much more set up for a Kickstarter crowdfunding type of thing to get something like that off the ground. But it sounds like, and it's a logical answer, is you want to stay true to form as quarter arcades first and foremost. Everything else is within the realm of possibility, but it's not necessarily going to overtake the design and the need for quarter arcades first and foremost.
I think it's easy to take your eye off the ball with these things. Whether it be a commercial or a fan project you're doing, best to stick to the core kind of idea. Certainly in the beginning, it's a fairly new brand. We're pleased with the machines that we've got. For me, it's about building upon those and kind of using what we've learned and making it as good as it possibly can be, really, is the kind of short answer. But the accessories thing is interesting, as long as it doesn't affect our kind of efforts and timeline for what we've got coming up. And obviously everybody's asking me, and I totally get it, what are we doing after Space Invaders? So we are working in the background, is what I can say. But I want to be two things. I want to be 100% clear on that we deliver what we've got ahead of us, and also, being as absolute as we can with those projects, that we're confident of both the license, the IP, and the timeline of delivery, really. So, we've got we want to get into a pattern of ensuring that we stick to what kind of we say is as close as we can, really. That's the real deal, I think.
Well, that's good. That, like I said, you guys are trying to be open, as honest and communicative as possible. You're wanting to be, as clear and concise with the consumers and the fans as possible. You don't want to overpromise, leak information, or share information that ultimately ends up, not coming to fruition, or being so far down the pipeline that all it's done is stoke an unnecessary fire of desire prematurely. You guys go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but I want to be honest. It's a chance to speak to you, candidly as well. Yes, and I work for Numskull, and I'm going to say obviously positive things, but equally it's recognizing, where like developments say with track and field, perhaps it would be when it's all signed off, do we go and tell everybody about it when it's all completely approved? The problem with that is that the lead time between me telling everybody to then delivery is very, very short.
Mm-hmm.
And business doesn't always work in that way, so it's just finding that fine line between when I can say something and then when Numskull says it, if you like, not just me, and then when it gets delivered. So we're constantly kind of looking at ourselves with that. We want, going back and saying to people with track and field, look, we're going to have to put this on hold, was a difficult decision. But equally, we know it was the right decision because currently it's a grey area. I like a little bit of, it's either got to be grey-ish or absolute. If it's white and vague, or whatever colour you might relate, it's just you've got to not tease people with too much. And I think with accessories even, that's why I'm sort of saying yes, it's a good idea, but it's a back burner thing compared to making sure you deliver these cabs successfully, giving them the best chance possible. And I have to say, either alongside or in front, what's the next however many? What's the next few, let's say 3 that come out, and having the confidence to talk to my peers, really, because that's what I'm doing. I'm a collector at heart, and see people at events, and can't wait till that sort of safely gets going, so I can say, this is the best we did, and we hope you saw we did our best. We don't expect people to bow down on us. It's we are a business, but equally we are a business that wants to listen to the fans and adapt and do things in the right way, I suppose. Is the angle we're kind of coming from. So answer, I suppose.
Yeah. That's good to hear as a fan, though, is that you guys are willing to adapt on the fly and take response and suggestions and things like that, because there's so many companies out there that I'm sure you're aware of that have a roadmap. It is written in stone, and they're going to stick to the roadmap no matter what. Nothing's going to change or alter that, whether it be financial, world events, or anything like that. They're going to do all those things first and foremost, but you guys are still open to suggestion. You're open to just hearing that consumer feedback, because you're going to be open and honest and say, hey, you might not know everything that the consumer truly wants.
Yeah, and it's trying to make sure we deliver something, but then don't take too long, but don't rush it. It's just finding that sweet spot. Is probably the brand. What is the sweet spot for something we are. This is a collectible product. We're not like mass producing this. We've done some nice numbers of production and got them out there, but it's still, for me, it's it's a work of art. It's still very much something you kind of want to be like feeling the quality for, and therefore we want to maintain that at the same time, not whittling it away for years on end. Where we announce something and then you get it 5 years later, because nobody's going to hang around for that. So
yeah, hard to keep a consumer base for something like that. You talked earlier about accessories. Have there been any thoughts or ideas about maybe incorporating new concepts to these arcades, or is the focus truly going to be for authenticity? So when I say incorporating new things, so I'm talking about maybe an HDMI output, so where you can connect the cabinet to a TV and play it on a bigger screen, or connect a Bluetooth speaker to it, things like that. Has any of that been noodled around yet?
I think I had a fair few internal discussions with regards to this. I put a question out about 3 weeks ago, actually. Probably on that one, it would be the jury's out somewhat. We never say never, but I think the feedback from HDMI was that most people were not in favour of it, quite honestly. And also, you've got to then weigh that up with the cost and time aspects of it. So, you know, want to make these cabs, you know, a reasonable amount of money. You know, that we don't add too many widgets in that don't necessarily
make sense or translate, or add value even.
So, you know, you've got to kind of look at that. At the moment on the HDMI, you know, immediate plans to like bring that into, say, Space Invaders. I nearly just gave it away. What else we're looking at? But you know, I don't want to do that because they're not final. I don't want to just chuck names out there. But yeah, you know, that HDMI won't be in Polybius, for example.
Yeah.
But you know, future ones, never say never, but I think the general consensus is probably not. But I might eat my words, because say that a game could come up where it's a natural fit to can maybe look at something like, you know, that side of things, equally with the Bluetooth side, and you know, I think, you know, sort of controller wise, you know, that could be something that ergonomically works, you know. But again, until we've tested and gone into some of these prototypes, you know, whether it be, you know, separates we're talking about, you know, like wheels and light guns and extra controllers, we've got to see, you know, whether that is a good fit or not, I suppose.
Yeah, so it'll really just, I mean, it'd have to be a case-by-case basis, because since
absolutely.
all these arcades are so unique, you can't just slap one peripheral on them across the board and expect, you know, optimal results.
This is it. I mean, just from a personal perspective, I wouldn't want to take my eye off doing what I'm doing, playing Pac-Man. You know, I'm playing Pac-Man on the quarter scale.
Yeah, you're focused. Yeah.
And then I'm plugging it into a HDMI. But then I might want to do that one day. So it's kind of, it's not the fact why I would personally buy the machine to play it through a HDMI. I would play it because I'm kind of crouched over playing it in that sort of sense, where I'm kind of holding the cab here and then playing it over here. It's, you know, and I think that was why the feedback was less favourable, because people just said, well, kind of playing Pac-Man in a different way rather than that way. So, but then, like you say, on a case-by-case basis, there could be a game where it favours that. In which case we'll kind of look at it, you know, in its own sort of merit, really. Same as the way we looked at Polybius, because, you know, there wasn't a licensor to work with. We come up with the functionality aspect of it being a, you know, USB charger to work with the other machines. So we just, again, look at it based on the brand merit of whatever it is we're working with, I think.
That's good. That's smart. I mean, otherwise you end up with a Pac-Man machine that has a can opener on it, and then you've charged somebody an extra $50 for an accessory that little to nobody's going to practically use. So, you know,
I mean,
it's good to keep focus.
There is a sort of, I'm a bit of a, you know, crazy collector, and I've got things that don't have any necessary link and function. So sometimes it can be a bit out there, but we would never rule it out to do something. If it had a clever connection, I suppose. If it was just creating a widget for widget's sake, you know, like you say, you press the back of a Space Invaders and confetti comes out, you know, it might be a bit of fun, but if it's adding $20 to the cost, nobody's going to be very happy with us, you know.
No, it's definitely walking that fine line between value and, you know, actual user experience, what the user bought the unit for and what their, you know, end goal was for, and then what their expectations for a price point.
Exactly, you know, press the back. There's my weird brain going now. You know, press the back, and arms come out, and it starts moving along the table, and it's $50 extra. They're going to go, "What have you guys been doing?" You know.
Yeah. You guys spent some really questionable decision-making time during this lockdown period, for sure.
We're going to try and keep it somewhat real. But Polybius, you know, that showed us where we could, you know, think a little differently. You know, especially with the video development, and the fact that it's very cool when you open the back of this and just see those row of chargers. So I think like that, because it isn't the authentic, it's not the thing of what was real. You can play around with it a bit more.
Yeah, you got a little bit more creative license, so to speak, because you're basically starting with a blank canvas.
I think going full circle, to what you kind of brought up, and also the beginning, is that we make that connection of the air vents being in the same place, position, depth, with the wire mesh. And then if we put something kind of round here and you look at the back, you're like, well, is it as absolute? Because I've already got that one that's doing that. So that's kind of my kind of point, really. But then if there's a nice fit with that functionality, and we would never kind of rule these things out, really. But I think generally we want to try and keep that authentic state as much as we can with these, with the quarter arcades.
That's perfect. Well, Krish, I appreciate you taking all the time talking quarter arcades with me. Where do people need to go to find out more information about quarter arcades, and how can they find them?
We can go to quarterarcades.com. So it's all one word. That's the machines that we've currently got live for our retailers. You can also go to, so you go in there and click and select your retailer. And that's for like things that are currently going, obviously, once they come through. And if you go to if you follow us on Numskull Designs on social media, that's just Numskull Designs, all one word. Main channels are Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and then we've got a YouTube channel. So we've got some cool videos. Mark, who's our video guy, he's produced some really nice hands-on stuff just recently as well. So go and check Mark out, give him a little sub, as the YouTube is done now. And obviously the fan page. I really think I like it being in there. I like fan pages just generally because it's as much as us, it's run by fans, it's not run by us, run by a couple of guys who set it up. So Reggie and Glenn, do a fantastic job, but it's very everybody's kind of running it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a community project, so to speak. I mean, it's policed by itself. It's housed and compromised by people of like minds and desires and collectability, and it's everyone gathering to talk about their collections, show off their collections, and talk about what they want to see added to their collection.
Definitely. We want to also try and make it a bit of a space where you do get some exclusive aspects. We just run a competition recently just to win the anniversary little gift set, which actually closes. I think pretty closed by the time this finishes. Closes today or yesterday. But we work with the guys who run it to do little competitions. Show up in your game room. We've actually got a high score competition running at the moment, so that might be live still. So that's going to run for 3 months. It's only just launched. So if you've got a quarter arcade cab, I know you have. I expect to see some scores, Doug.
All right.
Some nice juicy scores. Then we're doing actually got a website, a web page where you can go and that's Quarter Arcade High Scores. The link I'll send you so you can put that in the description.
Okay.
And we're just trying out, and the winners of that will get a nice certificate, a framed certificate. Runners up get a certificate, and then the very cool thing for the winners, we're doing the Namco cabs first, the 4 anyway. We're going to do little, they're almost like cards.
Little trading cards.
Trading cards.
Nice.
Yeah. So you have your photo,
that's a sweet prize.
Your score, where you're from, and then we're going to give people a little set of cards that they can keep and hand out to their buddies and say, there you go.
There you go. That is the legitimate, pinnacle of a bragging right, is to show yourself on a trading card and say, look what I did and you didn't. I outscored you in Pac-Man, and I've got this to show for it. That's awesome.
We've got plenty of scores. I've had a little flurry. We need some more though. So I think people are always nervous, am I going to get a good score? But starting to go on the page. I put some up today. So I think once people see a score, it gives them a bit of something to aim for.
Yeah, they know what's attainable and how much practice they need to get in.
exactly. But I can't actually enter, which is it's actually not a bad thing, because I don't want to be like not on the scoreboard.
You didn't want to make the list. You want to be
Yeah,
on there at least.
I
If you
can't
were.
officially make the list, but I may not have made the list anyway. So, but yeah, that's running for a good few months, and it'd be good to see the chat around that in the page as well. And then, as I say, any updates we're getting, I'll be putting in there first of all, and then it sort of goes on social afterwards, really. So yeah, the page is a good place to kind of start if you wanted to find out about what we're doing, really.
Awesome. It sounds great. Well, I absolutely love these things. I can't wait to see what you guys have in store in the future. I'm anxiously awaiting, the future releases that we do know about, especially with Polybius, because like I said, I need something to charge these machines. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. And Chris, once again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to chat with me.
It's been a pleasure. It's been fun, actually. Good to speak to you.
All right, man. Thanks. I'll let you go.
Okay, thanks. Cheers.